Hey guys, it's Sarah with AmericanTrucks.com, and today we have a review and install of the ProMod front bumper in textured black, fitting your 16 to 18 Silverado 1500s. This is perfect for the Silverado owner who wants a high clearance front bumper that includes a skid plate, works with their factory tow hooks, and features mounting points for several lighting options. This full-width, high-clearance front bumper features steel modular construction with a textured black powder coat finish to get you that rugged off-road look. This bumper features mounting points for several different lighting options, like light bars as well as pod lights out to the side. As I said before, it works with your factory tow hooks, and it also works with factory sensors if your bumper has them. And as far as price goes, this one comes in at around $1,000, which is middle of the road price-wise when compared to other options. And for your money, you are getting a high clearance front bumper that includes a skid plate and sets you up for lighting down the road. So as far as the install goes, I'm giving this one a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. It does feature a direct bolt-up installation, but because the bumper is so high clearance and the wheel well liners hang down, you may want to do some trimming, but it's not required. All in all, it can be done within 2 hours. So with that said, let's check out the install. For this install, you will need an impact gun or a ratchet will work just fine, 10, 15, 17, 18, and 19 millimeter sockets. You may want an extension, 4, 5, and 6 millimeter Allen keys or sockets, a pop clip removal tool, 10, 12, 14, 18, and 19 millimeter wrenches, and you may want a razor knife or a similar cutting tool. Alright, so the first step in our uninstall with your hood popped is to remove all of the pop clips that hold on your rad support cover. Grab a pop clip removal tool, or you can use a flathead screwdriver, and let's get these removed. With all of the pop clips removed, you can now grab your cover and remove it off the truck. Now we can see the 4 bolts on the top of our grill. We need to remove those with a 10 millimeter socket. With all of your bolts removed, you can grab the grill and pull back straight towards you to release all of the clips. Alright, now that the grill is removed, we can see the bolts that we have to remove to take off your bumper. There are 2 on each side, one is up top here, and one is just on the inside of the frame down there. Grab an 18 millimeter socket and let's get these removed. Now I just want to point out this one is an aftermarket replacement bolt. Yours will look like the factory one that we just removed. Repeat that on the other side. All right, now we're moving on to underneath your bumper. These are the last 2 bolts holding it on, so make sure when you're underneath, it is supported. Now these are also aftermarket. Yours will look more like the factory bolts. And these are 17 on our truck, so grab a 17 millimeter socket and let's get these removed. Repeat that on the other side. Now that all of your bolts are removed, you can remove the bumper off of your truck. Now we also do have to remove the factory bumper brackets. There's 3 15 millimeter bolts. So grab your 15 millimeter socket and let's get these removed. Repeat that on the other side. Next up, we're gonna remove the bumper support bars. Now you don't have to remove these for install, but you may see these peeking out from behind your new bumper, and they are not used, so we're gonna take them off. There are two 15mm bolts right on the other side of the frame behind here. Let's get these removed. Repeat that on the other side. All right, now that we have our factory bumper uninstalled from our truck and our new bumper assembled here, we can check them out side by side. As you may have noticed, the new bumper is quite a bit smaller than your factory bumper for more clearance and better approach angle. It features a steel construction with a textured black powder coat finish for strength and that off-road look. In addition, it also has some nice features like the skid plate, as well as several mounting options for the addition of lighting, like the light bar and also pod lights off to the side. It still allows you to keep the functionality of your factory bumper. It has holes for bumper sensors if your truck is equipped with them. So with that said, let's finish up our install. All right, so before we can get our bumper bolted up, we have to assemble the pieces. We have the center section here and the two wings on each side. So what we're gonna do is rock it forward to line it up. You're gonna line up each wing on the side. As we're lining up the wings on the side, grab your hardware. We're using the hex head hardware with a washer. And a flange nut on the back side. There's a second mounting hole a little bit farther into the bumper. Repeat that by installing your hardware. Line up the wing to the edge of your bumper. Grab a 17mm wrench and a 14mm socket and tighten it down. We're gonna get this as close as possible here, but you can always adjust later on for perfect fitment. Repeat that on the other side. Now you can grab your 14mm socket and 17mm wrench and tighten these down. Now, if you do not have lighting for your bumper, we will install these mesh covers. If you do have lighting, now would be the time to install it. What we're gonna do is install them in this orientation right over top of the openings in your bumper. Take your mesh plate and line it up to the back of the bumper. Now we're using our Allen hardware with a washer and lock washer and installing a flange nut on the back side. Repeat that for the rest of your bolt holes. Make sure your plate is centered, and then with a 4mm Allen key or Allen socket and a 10mm wrench, tighten them down. Repeat that on the other side. At this point, we can grab the brackets and bolt them to the frame of our truck. We're using the factory hardware here, lining up the bracket to the frame. We're on the driver's side, and this one is gonna have this flag on the outside here. Thread in your factory bolts As you can see, there is a ton of adjustability here. What I'm gonna do is try to center it for now, tighten them down, and then we can always adjust later. So with a 15mm socket, let's tighten these down. Repeat that on the other side. All right, now with the help of a friend, grab your bumper and line it up on your truck. It is a snug fit, so go slowly and line up the brackets on your bumper with the brackets on the truck. Once they're in place, go ahead and install the hardware. At this point, we're gonna line up the brackets to where our factory bumper support bar is mounted and slide in the larger Allen hardware with a flange nut, thread it in place. Repeat that for the second mounting hole. We're gonna snug these, but we're not gonna tighten them down all the way until we bolt up the rest of the brackets. First step to get these brackets on is to grab the M8 hardware with a washer and lock washer, as well as a flange nut, and get it through the hole in the bumper. Next up, grab your long bracket, and this is gonna go behind the bumper, in between the nut and the bumper itself. And for now, I'm just gonna hand tighten it down to temporarily hold it in place. Be careful because it's not actually bolted on there. Repeat that for our smaller bracket. Again, we're just loosely installing the bolt through the bumper, but leaving space to slide the open end of the bracket right behind it. Now you can line up the other end of your brackets with the one we installed to the frame. Grab the larger M10 hardware with a washer and a flange nut and tighten it down. Now with a 14mm wrench and a 6mm Allen key or Allen socket, tighten these down. And repeat that with the bolts that are going to your frame. Now for the outside bolts, this is a 12mm wrench and a 5mm Allen key or Allen socket. Tighten them down. Repeat that on the other side. With a 19mm socket, and you may want an extension, as well as a 19mm wrench, tighten down your bolt, holding the bumper to the bracket. Repeat that on the other side. All right, so at this point what we're gonna do is loosen up the hardware for our factory tow hook. On the driver's side, which we're on here, you don't need to remove the bolt, just this nut. So grab an 18mm socket and an 18mm wrench and get it removed. Then you're going to slide the bracket over top of the factory bolt and reinstall the factory nut. And we'll tighten this down later. Now we're going to repeat that on the other side. However, this one we do need to remove this bolt. And install our bracket. Now you can install the clip nuts over the front part of the bumper where the skid plate mounts. Now you can line up your skid plate. You may want a friend for this step and just be careful of it before it's bolted up. And screw in the supplied Allen head M8 hardware with a washer and lock washer. Install the rest of the hardware along the front of your skid plate. Now we're going to bolt the bracket to the skid plate with the M10 hardware they've provided, a flange nut, and a washer. For the bottom part of this bracket, we have M8 hardware with a washer, lock washer, and a flange nut. And here we're also going to go with M8 hardware with a washer, lock washer, and a flange nut. Repeat that on the other side. Now with an 18mm wrench and an 18mm socket, tighten down your factory tow hook bolts. Repeat that on the other side. Now we can tighten down the rest of our hardware. We have a 6mm Allen socket here with a 14mm wrench for our M10 hardware. And now we have a 5mm Allen socket with a 12mm wrench for the M8 hardware. We're still using our 5mm Allen key to tighten down the bolts in the front of our skid plate. And tighten the rest of the hardware on the other side. Again, with the smaller hardware, we have the 5mm Allen socket and a 12mm wrench. And for the larger hardware, a 14mm wrench with a 6mm Allen key or Allen socket. Reinstall your grill. Reinstall the 10mm bolts in the top of your grill. Now you can reinstall your rad support cover and reinstall the pop clips. All right, so as you can see, since our bumper is so high clearance, it's gonna expose a good portion of the wheel well liner. I would recommend trimming this down. Now, we won't be cutting on our truck today, but if you do wish to trim your wheel well liner, I would mark it along where the line of the bumper goes to cut off the exposed section down here. You can use a razor knife or a similar cutting tool. All right, so that's gonna do it for the review and install of this bumper. And remember, for all things Silverado, keep it at AmericanTrucks.com.